death having taken place for the redemption of the transgressions. Now notice it says, for the redemption of them, not the forgiveness of them. So now we're dealing with another aspect, okay? What Yeshua's blood did that the other shedding of blood did not do was redeem. It was for forgiveness. We read that in Numbers. It said, and their sins would be forgiven. But there's a difference between his blood and the blood of bulls and goats, etc. His is for redemption. It is substitutionary. In other words, he says, I'm taking the penalty on myself so you don't have to. This brings us back to him being the Passover lamb. Not literally, but in type and shadow, in that because of his death and blood, the death that would have been yours passes over. And that's why he's referred to as the Passover lamb. Okay? Because not literally because he wasn't killed in the temple, not literally because he wasn't done exactly the way you would normally do a Passover lamb, but it's in the parable of it, the functionality of it. Amen? Okay. Verse 16. I'm sorry, let's go back to continue in verse 15. So all of this is so that the called might, it doesn't say guaranteed, so that this is so that the called might, can. So now it's possible for the called to receive the promise of everlasting life. The everlasting inheritance. Because that was the inheritance promised to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, that there would be a time through their generations, through their descendants, that there would be those that would receive. There were those who lived and died all the way through that, at some point would receive the everlasting inheritance. We talked about in the earlier parts of this, the difference between being called, okay, and hearing and responding to the calling, right? Being called and being chosen. These are the called. They now have an opportunity to choose. Remember we talked about that, the difference between calling and chosen? There'd be no point without Yeshua's death. You could choose all you want. There still would be no everlasting inheritance. So that's all this is telling you here in verse 12 and going forward into 13 and 14 is that his blood brings redemption that is everlasting if you are those who are going to do the things you need to do. He provides an opportunity. He provides a possibility. He provides a potentiality. There's a potential now for these things. Without what he did, there's nothing. So never let me say something that you receive it as somehow I'm minimizing what Yeshua did. Because I talk a lot about what you need to do. Well, yeah, because now you're really mocking what he did if you don't do. Because he did it so that what you he did it so that what you do actually can have an effect, can matter, can be effective in your desire to live. Now, if he didn't do it, nothing you did would matter. Are we understanding this? If he didn't do it, nothing you do or ever did would ever matter. They'd be like, might as well be eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we die. But because of what he did, what you do does matter, which is kind of the opposite of the Christian thought process of, well, if you go ahead and try to do that law stuff, you're making a mockery of his death. No, by not keeping the commandments, you're mocking his death. Completely opposite. I know that's shocking that Christianity taught you something that was upside down, backwards, and opposite, but yes, once again, they did.